Hi, it's James here at the Sprinkled Donut Forge in Moscow, Texas, and it's been a long time since I've seen y'all. Let me get a look at you. You held up pretty good. Anyway, we got a project today that involves dropping things in the shop. When you drop things that are hot, you got to pick them up, put them back in the fire, or pick them up and put them back on the anvil. A lot of times the tongs you're using to hold on to your stock aren't ideal for just picking things up. They're more suited for holding on to things you've already grasped a hold of. So I'm going to make a set of simple pickup tongs out of these 23-inch pieces of half-inch round stock. It's just some of that old sales rack I've been farming out forever to make stuff. They're a little heavy, but that's okay. You can also use such tongs for holding small tooling or repositioning pieces under a power hammer. I like that they're long. If you're using a gas forge, you're going to want some length on your tongs to get away from the dragon's breath that's going to be blowing out of your forge. So here's what we've got. I've divided this up and I've written on this chalkboard, I hope you can see. That's kind of the shape that we're going for here. It's got a small swell and a larger swell and a little set of nibs for picking up, and a basic area for the boss. We're going to flatten out 5 inches or about 12.6 centimeters of the end of the stock on both sides, and then we're going to flatten out in the opposite direction 2 inches or 5 centimeters for a boss area to install a rivet, and then the remaining 40.5 centimeters or 16 inches will be the reins. And of course you can draw that stock out more if you want more length, just less you have to stoop over to pick things up. But we're going to keep this basic. I'm going to get the first piece in there and heat it up. So what I have to do is a little bit of measurement. I will back up the camera and I'll show you that marking. See you in a minute. Alright, let's start marking the pieces. The first thing we're going to do is isolate that 5 inches and make a chalk mark. I'm going to take my Champ Iron Works ruler, which these are handy to have because they fold out, and there's a way I have not yet learned to use them that helps you save a lot of stock. It's really a nice thing to have in the shop. Anyway, measure 5 inches. Go ahead and put us a little chalk mark. We'll do that to both of these pieces. Now, as soon as you stick that in the fire, that chalk mark is gone. Buddy, it's gone and you ain't going to see it. So you have to put something you can see on there. For that, I'm going to use the old Core Torture Hot Cut. And I'm going to eyeball it in. You kind of see that chalk mark on top, line it up with the edge on the bottom and give it a firm tap. Now look, you can find that when it's hot. Go ahead and do that to both pieces while we're doing. There you go. Let's get one in there and let's flatten out this portion from here on out. And I'm going to kind of put a little bit of a distal taper, which means that it tapers from fatter to skinnier in this direction, because I want a little more beef here than I have at the very tip. See you in a minute. Alright, find your little mark. Set that mark on the edge of the anvil and start. Alright. Square that up. Taper that a bit more. Alright. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of an offset there, and we started to flatten the 5 inches of material out. It's going to get a little longer, don't worry about that. You're going to need the excess length in order to create the curls in the rein at the jaw portion. So let's get that hot, work on it some more. See you in a minute. Alright, let's go at it some more. That's about all I want to do to it. Pickup tongs are different than forging tongs that you're hanging on to stuff real tightly with. Their sole purpose is pretty much to pick things up, but we end up using them for a lot of other things. And I knew I had to make me a pair, so I'm going to show you how I do it. Anyway, you see there's just an ever so slight of taper from here towards the end. That's not necessary, but to me it adds a little more strength to the piece. Now, what we'll have to do next is we're going to have to heat back from our mark 2 inches. So we have to mark that, and we're going to flatten that the opposite direction that we flatten this, and that'll create a little boss area for us to work on. Now before you do that, well, you still got a nice straight piece to work on. Go ahead and shape the rein, the end of the rein, the jaw portion. That way you can stick that beyond the cherry of your fire if you're working with a coal fire, and just isolate your heat to here, and you don't have this flipping and flopping around while you're trying to form this. So the next thing we'll do is we're going to form the jaw. So we'll see you in a minute. Alright, so this has grown by about 3/4 of an inch. So it started out as 5 inches from our little mark on out. So by flattening it, it stretched the material out 3/4 of an inch, which is to be expected. What I want to do is hang about 5/8 of an inch over the edge of the anvil and turn it 90 degrees with the offset facing up in this orientation. And what that's going to do is that's going to come around when I curve the first loop, and it will point out straight again. So let's get it hot, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. See you in a minute. I've set a rail spike here so I can judge about 5/8 of an inch, because that's what our rail spikes are. The offset is facing up. I'm going to hammer that over the edge. Now look at that. Close enough. Alright, there's what we got. Now I'm not trying for an upset 90 or an upset corner, which is perfectly square. I want it kind of rounded. So the next thing I'm going to do, which I could have done right now, is start curving that over into the smaller circle, smaller half circle. So I'm going to warm it up just a little bit, and we'll do that. And this will be pointing out straight again. See you in a minute. Okay, we got it rested against the corner. We're going to come out about 1.5 inches, fold it down again. There's what we've got. See there? Now what I'm going to do is heat that up, and we're going to curl that over. We're going to turn this flat into a half circle, returning this to the straight position, even with the bar. See you in a minute. Alright, she's warm. I'm going to cool that little tip off. And just a touch at the corner. I'm going to go over the horn. Hammer that down. Right over the tip. So there's what we have. Now we got to come back from that and create a larger circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this portion up and try to get at least twice as big of a little circle. Which will be handy if you're trying to grab round stock of various sizes. This will fit nicely on the large coil spring that I use. The bigger one, if I'm trying to grab a hammer billet that I dropped, I can flip it up, stand it on end, and then grab a hold of it with the larger circle. So it's going to be kind of a multi-purpose pickup tool. But you see what I've done so far. If you're following me, I'm going to heat this section up and make a bigger one. See you in a minute. Alright, here we go. We're going to come back here to our little offset, hammer it down. And it'll naturally want to curve a little bit. Go over the horn, and don't hit the part you already worked on. Curve that over. Okay. Now you need to curve this down. And straighten that up. Kind of get it to where it's pretty straight with the rein itself. So here's what we got. We got a set of double bumps. One larger, at least double than the other. Now, when you set that down on the anvil, you can see there's a gap there. So I'm going to take a straight peen and knock that down. Old Mason's block hammer. If you can get one, they are sure handy. We'll straighten that back up. Now, everything's hitting. Make it hit nice and flat. So there's what we got. This got slide downhill this way, so, or uphill this way, however you want to look at it. But that'll work fine. It's flat along this plane. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to measure, and we're going to upset a couple inches flat. Not upset, but we're going to flatten a couple inches of this. And one thing I learned from watching John Switzer at Black Bear Forge is that left-handed tongs will have the reins oriented for the left hand. And if you're a right-handed blacksmith, you're going to want to have a left-handed set of tongs. So the top rein will be on the left. Make sense? I could be wrong. I will share the link to that video in the description of this video. That way you can kind of get a better idea, because John Switzer is a much better blacksmith than me, and he knows a lot about tongs. So I suggest you check him out. So we're going to mark this, and we'll see you in a minute. Alright, our original little cleft in there is still visible. So I'm going to measure back 2 inches. Make me a little mark with the tong ring laying flat like that. Now I'm going to give it a bop with the hammer over the hot cut. Create our new mark. There we go. There's 2 inches away from where we've been working. Let's heat that up. Let's flatten that out. And it's going to have an offset to one side. So if I'm looking at it like this and my little curls are facing to my right, and I'm hammering it down using a half-face blow at the end of the equation here, then the other rein has to be identical, not opposite. And that's where you'll get tripped up making tongs a lot of times. Both halves have to look the same. That way when you flip one over, they equally oppose and they'll scissor properly. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're going to offset this, and then we're going to flip it over to our mark once that's offset and finish flattening it out and create an area for a rivet and for the bypass scissor action of the little tongs. Now these aren't designed to be strong, they're designed to be grabbers. So let's do that. We'll see you in a minute. Alright, here we are. Let's set our previous mark on there and offset it with half-face blows. Go ahead and offset it the opposite direction on the corner of the anvil. Now you can see what's going on here. So what I want to do is I want to flatten that out enough to, without losing all of my stability, make it wide enough for the rivet hole so I can place my rivet. So let's get another heat on it and let's do that. Oh, and by the way, if you're not trying to get heat on the parts you've already worked, cool them. You should be working with a mild steel. You shouldn't be working with a coil spring or a high carbon steel to make these type of tongs. It is absolutely not necessary to have a high carbon steel. Plus, it'll be more apt to snap on you and work hard and do all sorts of things that are not necessary for the purpose of these tongs. So let's heat that up and finish flattening it out. See you in a minute. Alright, hang it over the edge and keep working on it. Widening nicely. Kind of keep it straightening up. All right. I created that offset, but it's only really necessary up here near the jaw. I'm gonna kind of keep it straightened up. All right, that's pretty good. Kind of taper that back into the rein. Make sure that your tong rein and the end of your nib, this facet of it, pretty well lined up. This can be outward from it, but you don't want it inward from it. Alright, there's what we got. You see our basic shape coming into being. What we have to do now is we have to create a hole. I'm going to set that there and grab a center punch. We'll create a dot, and for this particular project we're going to drill it. I want to get kind of in the middle of the equation here. Center punch mark. Alright. That deformed it. Straighten it up a little bit. go ahead and drill it. See you in a minute. Alright, I've drilled this out on the drill press just because of the nature of the material. I didn't want to distort it trying to punch the hole. You can punch the hole, but I chose not to. See the offset here? I went ahead and made the rein drift away from it. After the rivet is installed, the reins can be adjusted inward to whatever position you feel comfortable with. So what I've got to do now is I have to duplicate this tong rein, make one exactly like it, and I have a rivet ready. This is a 5/16 hole. When I make one exactly like it, we'll put them together and adjust them, and then see if we can pick something up. No, I'm not going to pick up the little cat. We'll see you in a minute. Alright, here's what we've got. Here's the first rein that we made. See, it's got the offset to that side. Second rein we made. Pretty much identical. Got a fair match on it, so it ought to meet up. Holes, close enough. You see they're offset the same way, so when you turn one over and drop it below the other one, you should be able to get a pretty good fit. Now, until we get the rivet in, we won't. So I got a rivet. We'll put one in through one of the flat sides here. Nice loose one there. And then keep the flat sides facing out. See if I can get it set down on there. Now that rivet's kind of long. You want the rivet to be a time and a half the diameter of the rivet itself, sticking beyond the other side of your piece. So I'm going to measure that. It's 5/16, so it ought to be right about there. Top mark it. And I'll go ahead and stick that in the vise and cut the excess rivet off. Alright. I'm going to cut that much off. We're going to heat it up, rivet this thing, and then fix the fit. See you in a minute. Alright, here's my makeshift bottom header for rivets. Just a bolt with a ball peen depression in it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull it from the fire. I'm going to drive the end of the rivet down with the flat of the hammer well over halfway, then flip over and peen the rivet into place. Alright, she's glowing good. Get her set against it. Out this side, little cattywampus. So we got to fix that where it'll move. Alright, I don't like the attitude of the reins. The jaws are crooked, of course. Let's see if I can straighten some of that. Alright, that's doing pretty good. This is a little bit in need of freeing. Okay, they would actually work like that, but those ends are a little bit one off. Movement's not occurring in the jaw right now. It's occurring in the boss, which is the portion the rivet is set in. So I'm hitting here to push that. It's riveted together nice. Oh, nice and squeaky. Okay. loosens that up nice. Okay, I think I need a little more spring in the handles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cool off the boss section, the jaw section. What I need to do, if you're looking at this, the way I'm looking at it, see this area right here could stand to be knocked in just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and heat that and do it. See you in a minute. Alright, let's try to bring that in a little bit. Work it over the horn. Sorry if you can't see this. Got to use my heat. Make final adjustments on it. I can see that this side needs to be worked over the horn now because I like the shape of that top you're looking at. I like that. So I'm going to work this one and try to knock that one this way just a little bit. Alright. Okay, that's great. I like the way the circles are formed. One nib is a little longer than the other. I'm going to go trim that and a little bit loose. Give it a tight. All right. Need to spread these reins just a little bit. So I'm going to put them in the vise and pull out on the reins. I'm going to put this portion in the vise, pull out on the reins. See you in a minute. Alright, I did that and I'm clenching it. So I got a little spread and a little springiness. All I did was lock that in the vise, pull out on these reins and twist them slightly towards each other to where they're one over the other. Works great. I'm going to trim the nib. I'll be right back with you. Alright, here's what we got. A little bit loose. There's the nibs. There's a way to pick up some round. Let's pick something up. Ah, picked it up great. Oh, look, there's a nail. Let's pick that nail up. Picked it up great. There's a drop hammer. Oh, look. Picked it up great. Pickup tongs. You can grab them, pick stuff up, play in your fire with it. Pinch each other, have fun. Just be sure you can run before you pinch somebody. That's what I got for today. There's how to make yourself a set of neat little pickup tongs. You can also use these in the fireplace. Anywhere where grabbers like this might be useful. That's what I got for this evening. Till next time, bye.